you so much for joining on a Saturday morning. It's such a pleasure. And the idea is that let's have the five friends, and I call you all a technology leaders, to sit together and have a bit of a guftu and just generally talk of a subject which probably you all are working upon closely in your respective organizations or have worked on this. And let's gather a bit more knowledge about this, and thereafter we're going to compile this all onto a paper and share this entire paper to our entire CEO Lounge database. We've been doing this on every weekend, and yeah, so that's the idea of this. So feel free to keep pitching in and keep sharing your information, so on. I'm not a technology guy at all, so we have Hemant Chadda, who's going to moderate the conversation. And Hemant is he loves technology. He loves solving technology problems. He represents Velocys. And Hemant moderated the session on the last Saturday, and I've been floored the way of his moderation. And I told him that you are awesome, Hemant. You should do this more often. So I'm sure you guys are all going to enjoy this. But let me make a very very quick introduction of everybody. I think that's Hari tells me that I must do that, even though we know each other. So we got Madhvi Kanumuri. Madhvi is the CIO for HCG, and she's responsible for the overall strategy and execution of enterprise IT and digital technology for the HCG enterprise. And as Madhvi mentioned, she has held a very senior position in GE Healthcare before this, and also with the Bell Helicopters and Zeon Chemicals and Choice Systems, and over 2 decades of experience in the IT and the global leadership that comes from. And I just realized she happens to be my neighbor as well in Bangalore. So Madhvi, welcome. Then we have Abhishek Gupta. Abhishek just returned back from a lovely holiday in from Pondicherry. So all the sea that you see behind, he's brought that along with him. And alongside, barring during the holidays, he also heads the IT function for Dish TV. And over 2 decades of experience in IT sales, account management, infrastructure management, and various sectors he has represented and worked with, including banking, manufacturing, telecom, media. A self-starter. I mean, a guy who loves to work independently, and I'm really looking forward to Abhishek's view today on the subject. We have Harnath Babu. Harnath is the Chief Information Officer for KPMG in India, and he leads the technology team. He drives the new agile engineering capabilities for various diverse business functions at KPMG. Again, over 2 decades of experience, and he has worked in almost all domains of mobility, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, and much more. So Harnath, welcome, and look forward to your views today. And my friend Prasad Patil, he loves playing cricket, as you all know, and he lost a game last evening, as I lost this morning. And so Prasad is the Chief Technology Officer for JM Baxi, and he's also the Chief Operating Officer for Arya Infosystems. And he's a business head with a solid technology background, and he's worked with all domains from manufacturing, services, assembly, R&D, marketing, corporate information technology, etc., etc. And he's also worked in various industry domains, including banking, automobile, oil and gas, agrotech, security, retail, telecom. I don't think Prasad's really left anything in his last 25 years of working career. And of course, Hemant, as I said, represents Velocys and a hardcore technocrat, and I'm sure you will all enjoy having this conversation with Hemant today. So very interesting topic, on the hybrid cloud. And so Hari was mentioning this fact to me, and he researched something very interesting, and he said 63%. There's been a 63% increase in the investment in hybrid cloud by the Indian companies. And it is way more than the 43% global rise. I mean, that's an amazing stuff. And the survey also says that 97% Indian enterprise see the hybrid cloud as an ideal architecture for the organizations. So, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, would love to know more what this is all about. The question is that when computing and process demand increases, so beyond the premises data center capabilities, let's understand about how useful is the cloud when you're scaling your business operations. Is it impacting the purchasing and installing and maintaining new servers that you may not need at all, and how the migration, partial or full, how painful is it, or how pain free it is? So let's try to answer many of those questions as we move forward. So Hemant, over to you. Next 1 hour, I let you speak with the fellow panelists, and I would be a great listener on that. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Deepak, and thank you, Arna, thank you, Abhishek, Madhvi, and Prasad to be on a Saturday morning. Topic is fairly interesting, and possibly Deepak did set up a lot of context on the hybrid cloud, but I think we're going to be challenging each other pretty well on this architecture as a concept. So we know for sure, we all agree that the disruption. Did I lose you?
No, you're very much there, Hemant. Yeah.
Okay. So so we all understand the disruption of the business has happened through the software technologies and development, be the architecture of the application that have changed in this disruption. The development processes have changed from waterfalls to the agile. The way the applications get packaged have changed, and the way the applications are now in the infrastructure from data center to multi-cloud to hybrid cloud have changed at all completely. The question that I want to discuss with you all in the panel is, Hanath, if you can start up first, as to how the mission critical applications, how confident the organizations are to run those applications out of public cloud and leave the data center completely. Over to you, Hanath.
So Hemant, I think there are two aspects to this, right? One is obviously the whole pandemic situation in last few months have actually changed the very mindset of people in terms of how they've been consuming technology services, especially from an infrastructure point of view, right? So I think some of them actually struggled to sustain, number one. Some of them had struggles with growth, right? Because suddenly there was a spurt in terms of the number of transactions that some of the modern, I would say, digital tech organizations were going through, right? I think they had to deal with large number of transactions that are coming in, and there were also challenges around how do you continue to continue to run your organization and keep the lights on while you're not really loading a lot of those costs which come by default from an on-premise infrastructure part of it, right? So I think there've been different challenges. And what has happened is many of the organizations have really taken that different paths, right, towards cloud. Some who had the cloud first strategy obviously were able to quickly respond, especially in cases where there were a lot of demand coming in. Some who were like very traditional, very on-premise kind of a mindset, obviously they had their own struggles because they also had to continue to support the weight that they were carrying from an on-premise infrastructure point of view. And also any provisioning that had to be done because of the growth, obviously they had challenges. And one of the challenges that we also saw was as we were trying to provision for infrastructure, the whole supply chain and the logistics went in for a toss, right, during the pandemic time, which meant that if you had an opportunity to grow, you could not grow because the supply chain was completely disrupted, and there was no, you could have really provision for infrastructure. And that's when I think some of us really felt that cloud was a savior, right? So I think if your applications were more like a let's say cloud native, or you're ready for a cloud, or you could actually shift some of your workloads to the cloud, you were somehow you could manage, right? there are two aspects to the whole cloud journey, right? One is obviously the whole system of record, and second is system of engagement. Many of us have been trying to put a system of records also onto the cloud, which when I'm saying system of record, typically your SAPs or Oracles or your specific core business applications, which are basically have to be treated purely like a register, right? I think that's one. Second is the system of engagement, where you would have your customers interacting, your mobile apps, your all the agility that you need to kind of deal with from a interfacing with an end user point of view. Those obviously also had to be given that kind of priority from an infrastructure provisioning perspective. So coming to your question, Himan, on what is the comfort of organizations, right? I think I've just kind of mentioned few scenarios, right?
Right.
Which obviously are driven by different agendas or business scenarios, or and when you look at some of these strategies, right? From an infrastructure point of view, public cloud comes into or comes very handy when you are dealing with large spikes, right? Especially events like these, very seasonal spikes, and you have been able to I would say design your architecture in such a way that you are able to quickly scale, go to the public cloud and come back if it's required, right? Especially from a system of engagement point of view.
Right.
So organizations today may or may not be comfortable with system, which is basically a backend system like SAP going onto the cloud. Some of them are trying SAP HANA, obviously happening, Oracle on the cloud is happening.
Yeah.
But what's been seen majorly by most of the organizations is they are very comfortable moving what is actually facing the end consumer, customer, moving to the cloud. And wherever there is a lot of very high dependency on the seasonality as such, right? That's one segment of, I would say, cloud consumption. Second is we are all talking in the current scenario on a cloud platform. Obviously, this has come very handy. Some are very natural, I would say, choices for cloud, right? So all the collaboration platforms necessarily move to the cloud. So you don't have an option. You can't have a on-premise. I still remember until last year we were running Skype on-premise, right? So because
Right.
what reason, right? Now suddenly one pandemic situation hit, all of us are on the cloud. We went to Zoom, then we went to Teams. Teams is a standard globally, we are on Teams and very happy using it. So, and obviously we are clocking millions of minutes, right? Practically on a daily basis. So I think there are different workloads that qualify for public cloud, but certainly, as I said, whatever has high variability moves automatically to the public cloud. Whatever has a low variability and you would still want to control the cost will continue to stay on premise. That's my view.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Anand. So your opinion is that, well, for your mission critical applications, you kind of assuming or you're believing now the public clouds are ready to take up those kind of loads. So Abhishek, over to you. What do you feel about what Anand just kind of mentioned, that some sort of comfort is coming? You're no longer very sensitive about keeping those critical applications in your data center, and okay to move it to public cloud. Your views on this?
Yes, so I think for us it has been a journey, and I have been a part of this journey for the last 6 years, and I think the journey started even before I joined the Dish TV, at that place, because I inherited a architecture wherein it was a hybrid cloud already. Of course, the footprint was very, very small, meaning the mission critical database servers were basically our physical servers. It was just that they were hosted at a third party co-hosted location. And then there were some peripheral virtual machines, which was on the public cloud of the partner. And that is how the footprint was. So over a period of time, it took us the confidence, it took us time to have the confidence to move more things to the public cloud. So first challenge was the mindset challenge. The mindset challenge to other people warm up to this idea that yes, there is a world wherein your data can reside outside your premise. So we are more secure just because the servers are in our lock and key. That doesn't really work when you are anyway connected over the internet for all your applications. It helped because I was able to show them the value. And if you can show money to your CFO, then there is nothing better than that. Of course, that meant that I have to work really, really hard with my partners and make sure that they were able to loosen their purse strings to be able to make this journey possible for me. And in fact, we were in a situation where for the first 3 years when the contract was signed, we moved to the public cloud completely for our dev and test environment to begin with, because it made natural sense. It was a completely custom built application architecture.
Okay.
The core billing system to the CRM, everything was custom built. So we really needed to check whether my code will work on the so-called public cloud. And we were very cautious about it. So within 2-3 months, it was working fine. Our release was working fine. For 3 years, we were absolutely running dev and test on the public cloud. And then when the anniversary came for the renewal, all those discounts and credits went away. So
Okay.
the good thing that I did was to have an exit strategy. And that worked. Because within the 3 months before the end of the contract, and because they did not go the way I wanted, we moved back on premise. So, I mean, again, a very typical case wherein you step one step forward and then one step. But I think I was clear in my head that if it's a predictable workload,
Right.
it really doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense financially to continue the public cloud, unless you are really, focused and nimble that रात को 12 बजे script चला के बंद कर दो, सुबह 8 बजे चालू कर दो, but it really does not work, right? It doesn't work because someone is trying to work at 2 a.m. in the morning, then there's release at 7, then there is something left unattended. If you make it script wise, someone who's working would forget to tell and it will break. So we move back. And after that, then it was another tough journey for next 1.5 years got to talk to all those partners who were gunning for, going for the public cloud. And finally, about just before the pandemic, we were able to sign on the contract for the next 3 years. Of course, we were not able to make use of it immediately because the time was less, but the journey which we took upon, logically it ended that yes, this is the way and that is how we should proceed. But, so typically, the big names are Oracle and the AWS and the Azure. And I am running 2 brands, so there is Dish TV and then we merged with Videocon D2H. Now the D2H brand is also, part of this. So I'm responsible for both, and for all practical purposes, this is one company. Of course, we compete in the market with 2 brands. So the IT systems, the customer base is separate, so we manage it separately. So my brand is on one public cloud provider and the other one is going to be soon on the other public cloud provider. And it worked very well for us. So I am having no issues in terms of running my mission critical so-called applications all on cloud.
Okay.
So my billing system, all my subscriber data, they're absolutely hosted working fine on my public cloud with no problem at all. And I have tested it, run it for now almost 9 months, which includes all my customer facing CRM applications, call center CRM application, of course, consumer app, trade app, everything.
So these are critical applications, your business applications. Your revenue depends on them. So great, Abhishek. So I think you're pretty confident and comfortable with your apps moving out in the public cloud. So Madhu, over to you. I guess healthcare is a little bit more cautious about the public cloud. You have probably a little bit more of regulatory compliance. Is that something that's holding you back, or are you comfortable to move your patient's record, your other data, which possibly is part of the regulatory compliance, over to public cloud?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Hemant. I think when you talk about mission critical for hospital, right? One is what you said, which is a clinical systems. The other is, like Harnath was talking about from a ERP standpoint, what runs the business, right? So I'll talk about both of these things in tandem with each other. With regards to patient records and information and data that is associated with that, yes, there are a lot of regulatory compliances and nuances that come with it. If this question was asked 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe I would have hesitated much more. But there's been a lot of advances that have been made in the public cloud space. You talk about Azure, you talk about AWS. These companies have invested big time in terms of regulatory compliance in advanced markets. And when you have compliance and regulatory issues taken care of in the advanced markets, emerging markets are only catching up at this point in time. So with that said, I think the comfort factor of moving to a public cloud is much better today than it ever was in the past. With that said, because of the kind of systems that we deal with regards to, treatments, patient treatments, radiology images, these are huge, big images that need to be kind of, not just accessed, but also analyzed to be able to give that point of care to our patients. So I think a hybrid cloud strategy is where we would absolutely benefit from. Arnav talked quite a bit about the pandemic situation. So having completely on-prem, when things like this hit us, is going to kind of cripple us quite a bit. And the hybrid kind of architecture kind of gives us that opportunity to be able to balance the two, while at the time provide that point of care services to our patients. We are also able to leverage the benefits of public cloud. So with that said and done, most of our centralized applications are on private cloud right now, including SAP, and our billing system has been on private cloud. In fact, that has been a blessing for us even during the pandemic. That saved us quite a bit. We're actually looking at exploring public cloud for SAP only because of the futuristic HANA opportunities that it brings for us. And moving that to a public cloud now gives us those synergies with companies like Microsoft Azure, who have those partnerships with SAP for HANA cloud migration. So I think what I'm trying to say is the public cloud providers are advancing quite a bit, innovating and investing so much that it makes it much more comfortable for us to move to that architecture.
Hey, thanks, Madhvi. Prasad, what's your experience? Your applications are fairly extensively, I'm sure, would be used by a lot of people in the field. The user experience has to be pretty good. You also may have a same problem of having a very critical, important customer data. Are you okay with public cloud completely?
So I'll give you both perspectives. Fortunately, over the last 2 years, I've been someone who has been blessed with the management asking me to lead a business from a CIO's role to a CEO's role. So now I'm able to see both sides. I also go as a customer to CIOs and try to convince them of these solution sets. But as a CTO, when I joined JM Bakshi, and even before my 6 years with SR, I think we were very clear. And I think even if you see the mindset that a lot of solution providers came in was all on cloud. Microsoft coming with a tagline saying we are all in and all that. So the thought was pick up everything and go to the cloud. Data centers are strictly no for businesses. And I think we all got onto that. And as Abhishek clearly said, we went there and then we realized that, the discounts vanish after some time. And it's actually a huge challenge for CTOs and CIOs to go back to the CFO saying, "Bas, bill clear karo." I'm being very candid. And we had those challenges, right? And that's when we started to realize, the solution providers started to realize that you have the ability to have solution on-prem, which can be a smaller subset of the cloud, maybe not at a scalability and infinite compute perspective, but good enough for you to get all those features of the cloud in a very small packaged versions. And then you had the Nutanix and the SimpliVities and, Dell coming out with the solutions, enabling organizations like us get the flair of the cloud, not in its full form, but something which would be on-prem. And that is where CIO started thinking of, is it good to put on the cloud and, bleed? And I use the word bleed because many of us thought that way.
Right.
Money whenever we didn't, because a lot of businesses, as Abhishek said, were cyclic in nature, where the burst was only required from a certain, a festival perspective or a cyclic nature of the business, where, say, for example, the ports business, the time of transactions during a particular time is high as compared to the rainy season when it's low. So that is where we got the options. And even in JM Bakshi, I think first 3 years, we moved our SAP HANA to the cloud, our core applications facing the customer to the cloud. And it was a good experience. But when it comes to the ROIs, right, I think that's where CIOs, CTOs have started to realize that you have to reanalyze what stays on-prem and what gives better ROI as compared to not just looking everything going onto the cloud and just getting done with the data center. And that's what has made hybrid cloud much more acceptable, to CIOs and CTOs. Coming to my role as a CEO, I think I've seen customers, and typically surprising. I think at the start you did mention about the government looking at the cloud, and we deployed India's port community system. So the mandate system for the country, the PCS 1X is what we did, and we've been successfully managing it for 2.5 years. We've got an extension now that's completely on a private cloud, public cloud. And it was a surprise that government have started now moving from the NIC data centers
Okay.
to MIT panel. So they've made those guidelines. There are MIT, NEITY guidelines which are there, and they're quite open now
Right.
to this particular concept of moving on to the cloud. So I think it's a positive sign, but there's a huge role that every CIO, CTO plays, because translation of the business requirements on how the business is transacting and what caters to that requirement, whether it's a public cloud, whether it's a on-prem solution completely, or a hybrid cloud. I think
Right.
that's where the CIOs and CTOs are now finding a place at the table, because that's providing huge value to the business, and we are seeing that happen. I think the trend is there, but more importantly, as I said, the
Right.
solution stacks from players like HP, Dell have started enabling that.
Right.
Another factor which I would also want to add is, when you go for a hybrid cloud, the critical piece in that hybrid cloud is the software fabric, which
Right.
enables the on-prem seamless burst onto the cloud.
Sure. Yeah.
So 5-6 years back or some time, I think that maturity in that fabric was not there.
Sure. Yeah.
The fabric has matured good enough,
Right.
due to which I think your CIOs find it, the peace of mind which Abhishek said is there, that if I do that, I think it's not going to be sleepless nights for me, because no one's going to figure out that kyun nahi ho raha hai. I think
Right.
that's also changed. So that's my 2 cents on the hybrid cloud.
Thanks, Prasad. So I think we got a kind of a mixed inputs on this question. So I just would like to kind of define the hybrid cloud once, what that kind of industry has defined, which is that it's an environment where, as you, Prasad, rightly said, the application and data moves from the public cloud to private cloud as exchange of data, and the application possibly lives in both the worlds, the private and the public. The question out here now is that, since I said it's a mixed opinion, Harnath, to begin with, said that I'm okay to shift all my data onto the public cloud. So therefore, the question is the relevance of hybrid cloud. Does it make any sense anymore? Because industry have been talking about hybrid clouds and architecture where you would keep a certain data which is important and critical for you in your data center behind a firewall, and not let the front end or maybe some part of analytics would go onto the public cloud to get the scalability and stuff like that. So, Harnath, if you can come back to us and say and explain, you really see the hybrid cloud to have any relevance? Do you see any use cases, any application which still you think can use this kind of an architecture, or you think it's a hype and over the time the public cloud infrastructure is going to be secure and therefore we may not need this architecture anymore? Over to you, Harnath.
So, Hemant, I think very good question. In fact, I think there are views that obviously we have discussed around the benefits of public cloud and the comfort around public cloud, right? But again, not every organization would be having the similar kind of a comfort from a purely public cloud perspective, because there are still legacy organizations who are still trying to figure out how do I, create a journey which will take me to a public cloud and continue to stay agile in my approach. And so obviously, with a pure public cloud and a private cloud, I would say there are both pros and cons, right? In terms of the cost of operations. Let's say if you're completely on public cloud, it's never a positive case, right? I mean, while if you, I think as we discussed a while ago, if there is a fixed set of workloads that you're looking at, I think I would And then again, there's no much of a variability in terms of, or seasonality. I think an on-premise infrastructure should be okay. You don't really need to look at public cloud. But again, it all depends on how modern is your application. So some of the older applications which are legacy, they will continue to remain on-premise. But over a period of time, I think some of them will move to public, right? But you'll still have, I would say, a large percentage of your workloads continuing to run on-premises, which may mean that we're not immediately looking at a complete shift to public, but certainly a large, I would say a longer time, wherein you will have to run both public and private, a balanced approach. And that's where the hybrid cloud scenario comes into play, right? And as I was alluding to earlier, if you have very dynamic or frequently changing workloads, right, where you will have to stay on premise and go to a public cloud and come back, because you have a common data fabric, and that's the whole idea of a hybrid cloud, right? You want to have a common data fabric. You move to public for processing, you come back depending on the requirement. I think that's one specific use case of hybrid cloud. Second is, if you really want to segregate the critical, I think we've spoken about the critical workloads, right? But again, to my earlier point, if you still want to push some workloads which you don't think are very, very critical, but you still want to, move towards the cloud journey, I think that's when hybrid cloud comes into play. Third is, let me give you another example. So in our context, especially from an audit business point of view, if you look at the earlier days, right, audit used to happen on samples, right? So you would take a certain sample of data and do an audit on that, and then go back to the audit report. Now the new ways of auditing is practically, it's the whole data, right? If I have to, let's say, audit a particular company, I actually go and do a dip into the ERP of the organization or the relevant systems of the organization, pull the whole data, run analytics on top of it, which may mean that I need to have so much of a power, especially if I'm talking about thousands of clients. I need to have so much of a power, which is again not provisioned for forever, right? I'm going to be I'm going to be churning the data, especially in a big data kind of a scenario, right? Churning the data, coming out with analytics, and shutting it down, right? So in scenarios like those, necessarily I need to have a public cloud, but I may not want to have all the data going to the cloud, right? Because it could be sensitive. So then that's where I take the hybrid cloud kind of a scenario. And another thing which comes into my mind is if you want to move gradually, right, towards the cloud, right? You want to start the journey, but you want to be, you want to test the waters because there are data privacy laws. You still are not very sure about security of data which is going on to the cloud. So some of those gray areas, especially which typically is overseen, or typically it's not really kept in notice of a lot of people, or they don't really want to focus on that. If you are looking at some of those areas, then certainly, I think a hybrid cloud approach would be of help, right? And I think what is important is, if I have to just summarize, if you want to have best of both public and private, right? If you want to have best of both worlds, and that's when you look at a hybrid. So to cut the long story short, I would say hybrid is going to be the future. Hybrid is going to be there for some time, because not everybody is prepared to go to fully public. Not everybody is actually, and the businesses are not fully prepared to stay on premise as well, because the seasonality, variability, the new type of use cases, the kind of application builds that are happening. It's a gradual journey. It's a process that is still, most of us are on those journeys. It's going to take some time. While you are on either side, right, you need to necessarily have the journey. And hybrid cloud is more of a journey. That's a definition, I would say. It's a journey that anybody has to go through necessarily if you are looking at a fully public cloud kind of a scenario.
You're right, Anant. I think the go-to-market strategy for a business is to faster rollout of product to your applications. And the kind of microservices and analytics is one point that you raised. I think it's pretty difficult for developing all those analytics and machine learning for the kind of data that you have on the prem, and spend so much of a time to do that, where the cloud is available as a consumption. Yeah, so I think that's a key point. So those kind of use cases. So Abhishek, back to you. You kind of mentioned that you bought your application back from the public cloud back to your data center. So weren't you using any of the analytics or maybe analytics, or maybe a social media connect to find out your consumers, the likes and dislikes? Wouldn't that have been fairly difficult when you moved your applications back into data center? Did you lose any of the feature set that you had in the public cloud?
Yeah, so see, when we did that, at that time, we haven't taken our production to the public cloud. I have taken my dev and test environment there.
Okay.
So my production was in my own privately hosted data center with a third party OEM, right? So that way we were fortunate that
Okay.
the learning we did was on a less mission critical application stack. And then we use that as a learning to think through the legal and the contractual obligations that our partners will have to honor now. So that is one thing that we did well in the hindsight, I can say. I think I just want to add more point on the hybrid side. So the definition that you expounded, traditional definition is the workload is such that when you require, you spawn off more in public, and when it is not required, you come back on the on-premise, right? That's what. But the way I have been using the hybrid cloud definition was, it was a combo of hosting some applications completely in public cloud and some continue to reside in some privately hosted model.
Okay.
For the way I see it, it is challenging for any application head or for a domain head to technically manage this kind of a scenario. Of course, it is possible, but even with the advancement of things which has happened, it
Right.
becomes technically challenging. So if the ingredients are set right, like Madhvi was explaining about that the OEMs are now more cognizant of the security guidelines, they are compliant to the domain specific or the industry specific compliance. So that security box is tick marked.
Right.
In terms of ability to run the thing securely is ticked off because of the various things that they have done. So the friction to have everything on public cloud is drastically reduced.
Right.
Because it's always a trade-off.
Yeah.
Now the trade-off is more in favor of having everything on the public cloud if you want to go there, rather than test the water and then decide, is how I see. So for me, I have moved a large amount of workload, and we continue to move mission critical workload to the public cloud. The few workload that I will continue to host in my data center could be because, as Harnath said, because of legacy reasons.
Right.
Another thing I could add is we haven't upgraded some COTS product to the latest version.
Okay.
Because it's a costly upgrade, or the effort and time required does not justify it, my bandwidth that I will have to spend. Those workloads I will continue to run on premise, and maybe 1 year down the line, when either I upgrade those workloads or I decide to move out of them and go to a cloud native competition of that tool, I would go there. Yes, one of the major reasons of going and taking my data to public cloud is also that now there are a lot of analytical tools available by default with these providers. You don't have to do any additional engineering to utilize it. It comes naturally to you. While you explore those APIs can be ingested immediately, or those kind of data analytics or massaging can be done without much knowledge, just by clicking certain things. So the additional benefit which I foresee. And when I created a business case, I did not put a number to it, but I'm sure if I do it rightly, it will give us much more returns than anyone would have thought of going to public cloud.
Okay. Abhishek, just a follow-up question to you. You kind of mentioned that your workloads, few of them work on public cloud and few of them on your private data center. Do you have a data exchange between these workloads, or they're kind of independent works in silos?
So definitely,
they kind of have a data exchange between these applications.
So the data exchange is there, and they're of both nature, real time as well as a batch. So when I say real time, because of two brands, I need to have a master somewhere. Because, for example, if I talk about business science, a technician is a common person. It's the same technician can go to do installation for a dish brand, as well as he can go for the D2H brand. Now, I don't want to create two technician masters. So I will have a technician master. So now if some application is on premise and some is on cloud, I cannot have, unless I want to do replication, I will not have it. So I will host it in my on-premise hosted database. Okay. So in that sense, an application which is running on a public cloud will have to come to my on-premise server to be able to fetch data, to be able to authenticate the user when you log in and back. So from that perspective, yes, I have that. At the same time, because we have data analytics in the night, so a batch job has to run, which will extract the OLTP database for certain key data points, bring it back, and then do the needful on the on-premise setup that we have. So we have both there. So connectivity is a very important thing. You cannot have enough connectivity, enough first level redundancy, second level redundancy at components. One small mistake, and all this thing will go for a toss.
Yes, Abhishek, I'll come to the connectivity part as well. That I think is pretty critical because you are connecting two fabrics thousands of kilometers apart, and that could be challenging. Yes. Madhi, over to you. You kind of did explain on the healthcare applications. You did mention about the regulatory compliance. So, is your patient data still stays in your data center, and you are using public cloud for some specific microservices, some analytics, some machine learning, prediction, or any of the healthcare benefits that get accrued out of that? So, over to you, Madhvi.
Sure, thank you. So the journey to public cloud has just now started. Traditionally, it has all been on private cloud and on-prem. We, as part of our overall IT strategy, one of our biggest imperatives is to move to centralized applications from decentralized footprint. So just to give you a bit of a background about the company or the hospital chain itself, we are about 23 hospitals in India and a few in emerging markets, and we provide specialized oncology services, basically cancer care to our patients. And the way we've grown is through mergers, acquisitions, or partnerships, right? So what that has actually happened or translated to from an IT standpoint is the fact that we've inherited most of the systems. So the footprint has stayed decentralized over the past few years. So our goal as we move to a centralized architecture and centralized way of operating from a business standpoint, the underlying IT architecture would be to kind of move to either a private cloud that will host these applications centrally, or look at hybrid architecture based on what the business imperative is for that particular application, or a completely public cloud. So today we have a multi-cloud environment. Most of our applications that are front-ending or front-facing to the end users are on the public cloud, basically through outsourced partners. And the mission-critical ones have been on the private cloud. And we are currently looking at how do we shift the journey to public cloud and also hybrid cloud. So the way we are thinking about going about this is, with regards to data analytics and data lake, we will look at a public cloud offering so that there is that exchange of data between wherever the other application is hosted and how we provide that interoperability. So one of the other good things about the public cloud providers is the fact that they're looking at interoperability in a big way. And especially in the healthcare sector, this becomes paramount if you're looking at patient data end to end, because none of this patient data is generated from a single source of truth, a single source of system, right?
Okay.
And so the being interoperable, being able to connect this data around a unified data source is paramount to be able to provide that end-to-end visibility from a patient perspective. So advantages are huge with regards to public cloud when you look at interoperability. So how do we look at a hybrid architecture in scenarios like this is number one. Number two is, kind of adding on to what I previously mentioned with regards to some of these heavy applications that provide treatments or diagnostic services where there's huge images that need to be processed on-prem only because of the analytics that goes behind the scenes for that particular patient. But when you're looking at overall analytics holistically for future AI and ML, you need to be able to port relevant data to a public cloud so you can process that in that environment. So,
Madhu, a follow-up question on that. Do you have your own team for application developments? Because these possibly are the one that you're customizing it.
So we have, it depends on which application. Some of the applications are in-house, but not completely in-house either. There is a hybrid model that we have. There is an outsourced element to that, and part of it is in-house.
Okay.
Some of them are completely outsourced as well.
Okay. Thanks, Madhvi.
Sure.
Prasad, over to you. You did mention about a fair amount of the hyperconvergence technologies that's kind of helped you uh, getting closer to the hybrid cloud architecture. The question to you is about the containers and Kubernetes. Is that something which is going to help us into our journey of hybrid cloud? Does that made it a little bit more less complex in the journey? Is it helping us to go a little bit quick on the deployment of these applications?
So a
What do you say?
quick answer, yes. I think these technologies are definitely going to see anything. I think the crux of hybrid cloud is about how you de-link the hardware below much easily from, and I think there's again two differences. With Abhishek, it is more of platform as a service, because he would have applications that are coded specifically for that. Some of them would be purely using infrastructure as a service, but technologies like that, Kubernetes and all, definitely these are the technologies which will actually enable this transformation. And
Right.
not just purely from a hybrid perspective, even the efficiency with the
Sure.
deployment that's happening on the public cloud. I think these technologies have really transformed how things happen. But to answer your question, I think the first question which Abhishek also answered about hybrid cloud, it is just one cog or one piece in the overall jigsaw puzzle that the CIOs face when it comes to how do you deploy your applications.
Right.
I think the solution providers quickly saw that there's a big lacuna in the all-in cloud market and on-premise market. And as Harnath said, there are organizations which are specifically dealing with cyclic applications. Look at Book My Show, look at where there's a huge peak. For organizations that may not look at those peak are pretty static, I think the hybrid cloud may not adhere to them as someone who would have these cyclic usages. But
Right.
uh, another question that you asked is about the why would someone want to stay on prem. I
Right.
can give my example as a CTO. We deal with ports and we have these really niche solutions called terminal operating systems,
Okay.
and they are very sensitive to latency.
Oh,
And we have ports in very far-flung areas like Haldia and Kandla, and you can be rest assured that while the transformation has happened in the technology piece, the bandwidth is still a
right.
concern.
Right.
And you typically not risk your high-end application because the ship is berth, and if you want to turn around in 24 hours, you
Right.
can't risk that application being down and the key crane being stagnant because the operator didn't have a move on his VNT, you know. So these are the stress, and there's considering Madhvi's scenario, there is a huge threat of lawful interception even today as we speak.
Sure.
Let the personal data protection bill come in, and then probably I think that lawful interception concerns that organizations have with regards to even the law of the land getting a look into their information when it's on the cloud without them not being able to know that it's been done.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So these are the challenges that will want organizations to keep certain aspects of their information on ground. But as Harnath said, there are certain aspects which can move off onto the cloud for a processing as and when we need it, maybe during the financial year end cycles and come back. So hybrid cloud fits a very good piece which was not there in the
Right.
overall subset, and it's there to stay, but not the cup for everyone. Everyone's not going to choose that
I think
particular.
that's a very valid point, Prasad, you've raised up, which is a low latency applications which needs to be executed right there itself, and therefore the computing concepts got to be there. But still, you possibly would need to do some kind of a predictive analytics at some later date, and you would possibly push the data back into the public cloud for doing some predictive analytics, giving you some attributes, what can happen in future. But you're right about it. I mean, that's where the hybrid cloud plays its role. I mean, be manufacturing and be the kind of IoT operation that you are kind of running, where you want the low latency applications to work. That's a great point, Prasad, that you brought up about the edge compute. Hanath, the question goes back to you from the. Sorry. Yep.
Just on the analytics piece, just wanted to add a last bit. It's a it's a good use case for pushing it onto the cloud. And I think Madhvi also mentioned that she's looking at something like that. IoT today, the amount of inputs that would come in, obviously you need an IoT aggregation layer.
Sure.
Now, these are services available off the cloud, right? And I think if you see, that's an area which has had quick adoption, even
Right.
for someone like us who would want that to be aggregated at that particular layer, analyzed, done a learning on it, and the specific KRA, KPIs that you then pull out of it, bring it on prem and then have it. So that is something which is very endearing when it comes to adopting cloud for those.
Yeah.
And
And
of course, is even
right.
case for cloud as
And Prasad, right. And maybe you want to integrate that with your business applications, your ERP or SAP, and therefore that integration at that level would make a lot of sense. Yeah, that's a pretty valid point for hybrid cloud architectures to be more popular from the perspective of IoT and manufacturing as well. Hanath, I was coming back to you on the question about the containers, the Dockers of the world, and the Kubernetes. Um, I'm sure you'll be using them. Has it really helped? Has it really helped our IT teams to make this a reality? A much faster, agile systems of applications.
So Hemant, on that piece, right? So let me just give you an example which we've been working on for a while. I think certainly it was an architectural change that we had to bring in. So the whole GST platform, when it came, right, for most of the companies, obviously they are now trying to use a GSP or an ASP kind of a service provider to deal with some of the requirements. So as we are talking, we have a few hundreds of clients who have tied up with us saying that we're not really bothered about what you do, but just make sure that we are compliant, right, from a taxation perspective, right? So, and again, be it the e-way bills or the e-invoices or what we may call the GST returns, right? So what's been happening is as we are building these, so we had built an application which is more quickly turned out to be a monolith because it was a different kind of an architecture, only to realize that as we are putting more and more load onto that application, it required a different kind of architecture itself, right? So I think we have to relook at the way we had built the application, get onto a container-based architecture. You look at every service, let's say e-way bill as a service, or e-invoice as a service, or look at, let's say, GST itself, multiple services, yearly reconciliation, monthly reconciliation, whatever, right? So we had to really think of services, right? And again, when you talk about multiple clients, so you're onboarding one client, you can't have the other client suffering, right? For whatever reason,
Right.
you're optimizing for one client, you're creating data ingestion platforms, you're creating the customization to data ingestion platform for a particular client. You can't have the whole application going down. So keeping a very, very agile kind of a product approach, right? We started looking at some of those capabilities. Certainly, some of these things are not available on premise, right? I mean, you can't really, if you really want to be agile, you want to build some of these stuff, you can't be doing all of these things on premise. So we had to necessarily leverage the public cloud capabilities. While, as I mentioned earlier, we had to look at the data protection, data privacy aspects, right? So we continue to leverage the hybrid from a data point of view, but from a processing or from the capabilities that are available on the public cloud, we started leveraging container-based architecture, right? So, and again, I explained to you, right, the kind of variability that we have from more from a cyclical point of view, as Prasad was mentioning. Second, from the different dimensions or different clients would have their own complexities. So if you want to look at multiple, it's not one business, but if it's hundreds of businesses that you need to deal with, you need to have that kind of a flexibility. Unless you're leveraging technologies which are container-based architecture, service-oriented architecture. Service obviously is more I think older concept, but purely on the container-based architecture, you won't be able to build applications like that, especially from a scalability point of view.
Right.
The second thing is, once you have the data with you, as we were discussing earlier, how do you build those predictive capability into the application, right? It requires a different kind of a service. It can't be sitting onto the same architecture, right? So it's about rethinking about how you can modernize your applications to handle scale and continue to stay agile as you are evolving the application. And certainly this comes very, very handy. That's my experience.
So, so which means that you have modernized your applications, which were legacy, monolithic, and you have broken them into microservices architecture as well, and containerized them as well. So one of the complexity that have come, of course, is the skill sets that we require today to do that. Is that a challenge in the industry today?
No, I think we did face some issue initially because I think some of these are at conceptual level in most of the organizations. You may or may or not find the resources handy. You have to train your people. That's number one. I think what we had been doing over last few I would say years, especially last couple of months, we have kind of started putting more focus on reskilling our own people, especially people with coming with a different mindset, coming with building a different kind of application. Right, the whole concept of cloudifying their own thinking, right? I think that had to be done, right? So people who were doing basic application development, they all had to be brought up to speed from in terms of some of these technologies. We did, as an example, adopt in back in 2016-17 the very concept of chatbots, right? So I think the mindset started changing at the time, right? So we said, how do we completely enable our people to do self-service, right? It's a large organization when it comes to India business, and how do we bring in as many? So today, as we are speaking, I'm practically running 17 different services on chatbots, right, within the firm. That mind shift change did take time, but what actually happened was that kind of put the I would say foundation for the very way of modern thinking and way of looking at modernizing your application. That I think that's been helpful. We've been, I would say, lucky to a certain extent to get resources, but we also had to put a lot of efforts to skill our people up.
Thanks, Anand. Abhishek, over to you. What's your take on the platforms which provides you with containerized or Kubernetes for orchestration and help you to kind of migrate your containers to public cloud and back, which you have done it before? Is that platform something that is in use right now? Is the skill sets a challenge for you in these areas? Because this is relatively new technology. Security, of course, is one major issue that when you move the containers into public cloud and back. Your views on this, Abhishek, please.
Yeah, so I think we have a very different kind of business priorities over the last 3 years, and one of the main reasons was because of the merger, right? So as a technocrat, my first challenge was to make the two organizations talk to each other, and the tough decision was what to keep, what to let go in terms of the technology. So I think we have been able to put it to rest now in the last. I think we did the last drop in September during the lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Now the focus is changing to the adoption of microservices and leveraging the platform. So I think we are kind of still getting to know the ropes for how to do it and what to do it. In terms of skills, yes, definitely, because if the people in the organization are not exposed and most of them are tenured, so we would have to do our fair share of relearning, unlearning, and then relearning, I would say.
Sure.
And for that, it is difficult for the staff to find time or get the motivation to do it themselves. It's about पहले सीखें कि पहले करें. So it's like a chicken and egg question, right? So you have to handhold them that okay, go online, spend some time over the weekday, 1 hour, block it for your learning. If you have more time over the weekend, do it, because finally it is going to reap benefits to you in your professional life. At the same time, give them some project so that whatever they have did self-study, they can actually do it, because only when you do it, you will know whether it works for you or not. At the same time, this will be very slow. So keeping this in mind, we are always open to partner with other outside organizations, which we do very often. Now it could be project based, it could be a T&M based. So we continue to do that. Skill is always a problem. I mean, no matter today we're talking about, if you would have asked me a question 5 years back or maybe 15 years back, it's always a challenge. You won't believe my attrition is much higher during the lockdown than it was before. Oh, yeah. And we talk about, people losing job and stuff like that. No, boss, in IT, everybody's, at least in my technology domain, my people, they are finding good jobs and very difficult to retain them. Because, we as an organization took a decision, around the salaries. So people are not really happy. So yes, when they get a chance, they would move on. So we have to deal with it, and we have to find our own ways. We always have too many projects at our hand, so that becomes their own challenge. But then being a B2C company, we don't have much of a choice,
Right.
and I think we have now got used to finding our way out in a chaos, and it's not very easy for somebody to leave that dish TV and go into an organization when there is no chaos, because they really thrive on chaos. So so that is why you would see many people have second innings in dish TV, because within 1 year they say, oh my goodness, there is no work, and we are
Right.
so used to getting the work. So yes, I mean, we are a little bit starting up in the game on Kubernetes and containerization Dockers.
Right.
Uh, but the thought process is very clear.
Okay.
First, basic building blocks were to be put in place. They are done. Now we can try out new things,
Right.
and we will do it fast.
Yeah, Abhishek, I think it's if you really want to get the power of the public cloud today, I think it's kind of a must that you got to move to containers pretty quickly to get the best. The cost optimization, which you kind of mentioned, also becomes very critical. So, Abhishek, one question that you raised about was connectivity. So, I'm going to pose that question back to you now on this. Um, so what has happened is that the applications have distributed, the data is here, and the application works somewhere there. And these are different nerve centers now. The connectivity poses a very critical challenge. Uh, well, it all depends upon how your applications are designed, what kind of data moves in between the applications into from your private cloud to your public cloud, how many times it hops before the results are given to a consumer of yours. So are you looking at some sort of a WAN technology, a software-defined WAN, which could connect your public cloud and your data center more effectively, giving you better links and paths? Are you leveraging any of the infrastructure technologies to kind of make that happen?
See, we did try that. We did a POC that was about a year and a half back, but none of the partners could satisfy our business needs.
Okay.
Right? It work for us, and we run, I think, one of the largest call centers in the country. Because we serve our customers in almost 13, 14 different languages, regional languages. And because of that, the call centers are all across the country. So I have a call center in Mohali, I have in Kolkata, I have in some down in Chennai, then I also have in Mumbai, and then there are at least 10 to 12 more locations. So which means that a customer, and then I have a unified call center number, right? So the call will land on one centralized number, which will land in my solution at Noida. And for there, it has to be diverted real time based upon the logic, your
Right.
language, the choice that you have made, and then the problem that you are facing. So yes, I definitely looked at the SD-WAN, but it did not work out. And again, we are still looking at it. In fact, there is a concept of PRI, right? So the primary rate card interface in the call center technology. We were trying to move away from them. Even SIP trunks, it did not work out because there is a compatibility issue in the hardware that I had, or the software I had, or the number of calls I can get through, or the way I can ramp up. So on paper, some of the technologies look really nice, but when you actually, when the rubber hits the road, you find there are small things.
There are challenges.
And that is why, one of the major things that I stress upon in the company, and we always go with it, is we have business KPIs. So meaning, so of course there is, I share the revenue and the EBITDA and the margins for the team. It's not about the uptime of the hardware. It's about the uptime of the application that I'm giving. And that uptime is not website up thi. If my center agent is to open a screen and a live customer is on the call, and the customer is having a barrage of questions, and the agent is waiting because that screen is having that goal, that is not uptime.
Right.
If that is happening, I consider it as a downtime. Now that downtime is applicable to my application guy also, to my infra guy also, to my network guy also. अब वो तीनों आपको ढूंढ लेंगे कि गलती किसकी है.
Okay.
So the mindset change is required. Otherwise, you will say मेरा network up है, but operation is successful, patient is dead. So that is why we all drive towards that particular thing, and then make sure that everybody is geared to it. Either we are live or we are not live. So technology will come a hand in play, but yes, that is important to keep it in mind and in perspective.
So I'll remember that, Abhishek, the operation was successful. Madhvi, over to you. You're developing applications of your own, and you have vendors who are helping you in that approach as well. So are you kind of moved from your virtual machines to containers, Dockers, Kubernetes for orchestration, or are you still in the process of doing that? And my second question, of course, is from the security policies. How do you ensure that your policies are orchestrated across your various compute infrastructures, be it be a public cloud or be it be a private cloud of yours?
Sure. With on your first question, Hemant, that we've just now started to think about these, containerization and the Kubernetes opportunities for HCG. Like I said, we've just now started the journey. So on some of the new applications that we are evaluating, this is a criteria for us to evaluate and see how that can benefit the company. But I think the bigger opportunity is in how we can move some of our legacies to this kind of an architecture, so as to give us better benefits. So we've just now started to think about that, and so very early to make any comments, I guess, with confidence in that area. With regards to security, it's quite distributed at this point in time. While we have the thought process on what these should be and how they should be kind of rolled out, we do not at this point in time have a very synchronized, centralized way of rolling it out. So it's quite distributed. So we work in sections with regards to this as we roll this out. So
that's a point of concern for you, because maybe ideally you would like to have a single point of control for your policies and let them be orchestrated wherever your computes, your data is.
Yeah. We've just now started to think through those. I think we are evolving, we've been quite infant in the last couple of years, and we've made some good strides in terms of getting our policies right. And now, like you said, I think that's the next piece of it. So.
And Madhvi, what about skill sets? Again, because you kind of now trying to modernize your legacy application. It's a fairly complex exercise. How do you kind of modernize them? How do you kind of split them into multiple tiers? How are you going to get benefit? Is that a really complex, I would say. It takes a lot of time. So is skill sets an issue that you're facing?
Big time. I think I'm not going to hesitate there at all. It's a big time skill gap that we have. The good thing is the fact that we're able to leverage some of the partners to be able to augment that. And, that becomes a learning process for us as well, and develop that skill set internally. So it's kind of an iterative process that we're developing, that while, as we go and modernize these applications, or as we evaluate new applications, we tend to kind of work with the partners recommended by the providers of the software. And as we do that, we use that opportunity to develop the in-house skill set, and that's how we're trying to upgrade and fill that gap, if you will. But it's going to continue to exist. Technology is such that it continues to evolve, and it's a continuous learning process as well for skill gap.
Yeah. Thanks, Madhvi. Sure. Prasad, again, the question about the platform approach. So are you kind of thinking about a platform which is going to be part of your maybe hyper-convergent architecture, which is going to help your application developers have the DevOps right there, create containers, have some of the open source components there, which could help you to move the containers back and forth from public cloud to your private cloud? Is that a platform? Are you kind of looking for it?
Yeah.
And of course, the current applications which are living in both the world, how is the management happening? Are you kind of comfortable of managing those applications, or is that something is still getting maturity from the management perspective, running a day-to operations, I would say?
Okay. No, so the platform approach is the way. Fortunately, as I said, the other role I play as a CEO, I have a 75 plus odd team, and I offer, at the risk of using this platform as a pitch deck, I offer DevOps services to a lot of customers, because I understand the pain of, and what Abhishek just said, I just gave the increment letters 3 days back and I've got 3 resignations. So it's a pain that we share. But as a CIO and a CTO, who's in the business, it's a larger pain because the process of recruiting people is very challenging. But as someone who's offering services, I have to do that because that's my bread and butter. And since I have a team, we've been doing that. We built the platform, as I said, for the Indian government. We now hopefully on Monday there should be a commercial opening of the next tender, which is the National Logistics Portal, and that's completely, and that's where I also recommend and commend the government on actually now thinking on the next gen technologies.
Right.
In the tender, they've asked for microservices
Okay.
to be entrenched as a platform, and that's where we as a skill set have already developed that. So that's going to be the approach for a lot of initiatives, even which is going to happen in-house, because I am also a IT services solution provider to my in-house customers. So platform approach is the way.
Yeah.
But again, what we look at outside, what we look at inside, it's typically, it has to be looked out from two different perspectives. Here it would be, as a need basis,
Right.
because we have to look at that platform. Then when I build the National Logistics Portal, maybe if we do get the order, and what we've done with the port community system is we've built it to ensure future scalability.
Okay.
Starting from six stakeholders, we are now 29 stakeholders on a
Okay.
port community system. And that wouldn't have happened if you're not put in a enterprise service bus, which is well capable of
Sure.
UN, EDIFACT, EDI, various aspects. So the approaches would be different, but I think the platform approach would be the way. And skill set, as I said, since I am on this side, it's a challenge, but
Right.
then it's something which you have to build in-house if you want to take care of those, typical requirements, both from a customer as from an in-house requirements from the organization.
Okay. So anyone else would like to kind of contribute to the platform? Hanath, what about you? Are you also looking at a sort of a platform for your application teams to develop and use the platform, various applications that comes into handy, your queuing applications, your service mesh applications, and so on and so forth?
So Hemant, I think it all depends on the. So I think from a so we have kind of segregated both the new age application that we are building to the conventional legacy application. So the new age applications, obviously we are leveraging the cloud capabilities, as I said, right? So AWS or Azure. So we have built already an application on AWS, which is AWS native, which is actually serving a lot of customers today. Similarly, we are building applications on Azure as well, right? So it all depends on the specific use
But
case.
no, these platforms are not on-prem, so you're using the platforms of the public cloud as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's possibly safe for all. Yeah, anyone would like to kind of add up to this discussion on the platform aspect?
So on the security piece, Hemant, I think we are also, I think a question that you asked, Madhvi.
Yes.
We've been monitoring our, cloud instances very closely in terms of some of the cloud compliance tools from, let's say, from Palo Alto or Netscope. I think some of that we have deployed to make sure that we are, comfortable, so both from a data perspective as well as, so typically when you put your applications on the cloud, you tend to, as I was mentioning earlier, you tend to kind of ignore or overlook some of the basics, right? When it comes to security or tightening or hardening some of the parts of the cloud deployments. I think that we've been using very effectively for quite a while now, and it comes very handy. And you'll be surprised if any one of you have already not been using it. If you just deploy one of those tools, you realize that there's just so many open ends that are not yet stitched, right? So I think kind of gives you quite a good view. So I think that's something which I would say is the best practice you should definitely deploy. Cloud compliance is the utmost, irrespective of whichever direction you're moving. Cloud compliance is critical.
Yeah, of course. My take on the platform approach would be to have it as close to your data center as possible, because that's your control plane. That's possibly ensuring your containers kind of spin off and expand the load balancing, maybe the SDN part of it. Uh, but yes, the cloud platforms are as effective for the development and of course running them in the production as well. So
Yeah. So Hemant, just to add on the security aspects which Harnath talked about, see, there are, and I'm sure Madhavi would also confer that, we work with a lot of European organizations in the agency business. So
right.
we have an impact on GDPR with
Yes.
regards to various aspects and the liabilities, typically, I say, liabilities that come along with GDPR. So what we do is so this is what step we have taken. We have an in-house, we call a GACC team, which is the Group Audit Certification and Compliance team, which is responsible for vetting all these initiatives that would happen with regards to application. They also audit various aspects as per the GDPR, requirement. All aspects are looked into when we do go for these deployments with regards to how it's impacting our compliance. And, because they are very clear with regards to data handler, data, how do you go about it and all that stuff. So that's critical, and we have to address it. But I think the way forward is very clear. We have to go in the direction with regards to the adoption of.
You're right.
all
Yeah,
the-
we will have challenges. We have challenges in the technology, but then overall, I think it's improving the user experience. It's improving the scalability of the
Absolutely.
applications.
And I think it has been proved in the present COVID scenario. I think people who have invested, and I say this that, when we started 5 years back in JM Bakshi, it used to be, see, "Arey, kitna paisa kharcha kar raha hai," right? When COVID came, people figured out that the ROI is done now.
Oh yeah. Now IT is more closer to businesses than ever.
Absolutely.
Yes. Deepak, anything?
Great conversation. I think so much to learn. There is one question which is coming to my mind as a very layman, and I feel that now as the entire data is sitting outside the data centers, public, private, as we all talking about, and Hemant, particularly you, because you've been seeing so many customers and you've been working with multiple companies.
Yeah.
Have you seen data being or a cloud environment being compromised? Of course, we've been talking about firewalls, all security, safety, but have you come across an incident where it has been compromised?
Well, yeah, it's been there. It's been there in the news, but has it happened for any of our customers that we work with? The answer is no.
But it does happen. There are still you still feel that
Of course, it's happened, and yeah, sure. But everybody of the view that the public clouds have become more secure, the kind of compliances that they can have, I think it's pretty difficult to have those sort of compliances for your data center today. But having said that, I think all the panelists kind of agree, Deepak, that the hybrid cloud is a way to go, because totally we're never going to move our applications to public or cloud. Neither we're going to keep it on a private data center, because we're going to have the best of the both the worlds. And of course, the go-to-market strategy improves hell of a lot when you can get a part of a job done for your application in the public cloud. Maybe because of the gravity, let the data reside in your data center, behind your firewall, secure, and so on and so forth. So,
good. So good times for Velocers in the future. Wonderful. So, gentlemen, Madhavi, I think amazing conversation.